President Trump abruptly canceled the signing of a bipartisan housing bill just hours before it was set to take place. The stage was literally set. And then he said, no, we're good. The bill passed in both the House and Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support, and it would have marked a major win for both parties ahead of the midterms. In a social media post, the president said he wouldn't hold the signing until his controversial Save America Act passed as well. That bill, aimed at tightening voting rules by demanding proof of citizenship and voter ID, has been criticized by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. But the president insists that its passage is more important than even this housing legislation.
Said I'm not signing the housing bill. I want to see what happens with it. Look, the housing bill is housing. I made billions of dollars with housing. I know housing better than anybody, maybe anywhere. It's all about the interest rate. Lower the interest rates, you can have all the housing you want. But you have to understand, I don't want to hurt people that own houses too.
Trump's decision to cancel the signing came as a surprise to many lawmakers. This is what top Republicans had to say.
The president said that he's canceling the signing until Save Act is passed. He said he's not coming today.
Okay, all right. I just heard that.
He won't. So what can you say about that? Is that going to work? How are your members going to react to it?
I just don't have, I guess I would say, at this point, I don't have any obligation.
Why does President Trump keep blindsiding Republicans on a number of legislative issues, including this morning's signing?
I wouldn't call it a blindside. He's been saying consistently for months that the Save America Act is a top priority. I talked to him about it this morning, an hour before he made that announcement. I convinced him that I thought the housing was fulfills his priorities and it's good policy. I needed time to go through with him the great policies and the changes we made from the original Senate bill, which was not a great product, what finally passed is.
But isn't this unhelpful?
I think it'll delay the signing, but I think we get it done.
The answer, of course, is that it is pretty unhelpful from the president, but that has become the trend over the course of the last few weeks. The president then visited Capitol Hill for a tense closed-door meeting with Senate Republicans. A source familiar with those conversations tells MS Now the gathering was a venting session for Trump. Things did get heated, though, when Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana confronted the president on the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran. Cassidy told reporters the interaction started when Trump asked the room why anyone would vote for the Iran War Powers Resolution, which passed earlier this week. Cassidy said he asked Trump if he really wanted the answer to that. Trump responded that he did. According to two sources, the president eventually told Cassidy to sit down, but Cassidy refused, raising his voice even higher. Trump responded by calling Cassidy a lunatic. Cassidy then referred to the president as brother, prompting Trump to reply that he wasn't his brother. The president also went after Senator Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania for missing Tuesday's vote on the Iran War Powers Resolution, according to a source. But here's the thing. McCormick missed that vote because he was at Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. Later in the meeting, the president pushed his Save America Act, telling Senate Majority Leader John Thune he needs to be a leader and get the votes for the bill, even if that means effectively ending the filibuster. Thune has said he's not going to do that. Following the lunch, Senate Republicans voted against a resolution, though, that would have blocked President Trump from resuming the war in Iran. As we mentioned, it comes after the Senate approved a similar House-passed resolution on Tuesday. 4 Republicans crossed party lines to support Tuesday's resolution, including Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. They were the ones who remained consistent, voting again yesterday with most Democrats. But Senator Bill Cassidy, who, as we noted, clashed with Trump over this issue at yesterday's luncheon, having called the Iran deal one of the greatest foreign policy blunders in history, Cassidy changed his vote. He explained it on social media last night that Vice President J.D. Vance and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff had provided him with a briefing on Iran. He went to the Situation Room just a few hours after that tense meeting on the Hill. The other Republican to change his vote was Senator Rand Paul. He put out a statement writing in part, "Since hostilities seem to be over and the president asked me to give consideration to his negotiating position, I will do so." He voted present. Trump celebrated the rejection of the resolution last night, writing on social media, "This vote puts Iran on notice." A lot for us to get to with White House economics reporter for Semaphore, Eleanor Mueller. Eleanor, another absolutely wild day on Capitol Hill, and wholly of President Trump's own making. It is once again putting lawmakers, senators specifically, in the position of having a plan that they think is going to be good for the president. I'm thinking setting the the Jay Clayton nomination hearing as immediately as they could for Director of National Intelligence. Trump completely throws that by the wayside. They find out on social media. Now the same thing. House Republican leadership were literally on stage celebrating this housing bill as Trump is putting out on Truth Social that he's basically going to hold it hostage until they do the SAVE Act, which the Senate has said repeatedly they are not going to do. So I guess my question is, what the what?
I think a lot of Republican lawmakers are asking themselves that same question yesterday. I was on the Hill from maybe 30 minutes after he told us he was not going to sign this bill as expected. The stage was already set up in the Capitol. And zooming out a little bit, this was supposed to be a great day for Republicans, right? They're coming off of this election in New York where a lot of Mamdani-endorsed candidates came out ahead. They were fired up, right, to spend their time basically trashing Democratic socialism. And then on top of it, touting this housing affordability bill, which is the most ambitious housing affordability legislation that Congress has passed in years. Instead, they found out that it wasn't happening and that he was asking them to do something that they've said repeatedly they don't have the votes to do. I spoke with Senator Mike Rounds maybe at noon. He's written some of the provisions in this bill. He's one of the senior members on the Senate Banking Committee, Republican from South Dakota. He said, I'm a sponsor of the Save America Act. I think it's good policy. We just don't have the votes. We did have the votes to do something on housing. And that's something, of course, Republicans could have then taken on the campaign trail, showed to voters as proof that they are doing concrete things with their control of the House, the Senate, the White House to make life more affordable for them. And instead, it is now indefinitely on hold.
And just a few months ago, when he went to Davos, the president was starting to roll out some of the very provisions trying to limit what private equity could buy in terms of single-family houses. Many of those provisions actually ended up in this housing bill. So it could have been something, frankly, for both parties to take out on the campaign trail. And I think we can't not think about the fact that Senator Tim Scott, who, yes, is the head on banking, but is also the Republican tasked with keeping and growing the Senate majority in a campaign sense. So the fact that he is one of the lead sponsors on this bill alongside Senator Elizabeth Warren on the Democratic side, I think really spoke to the politics of this moment where Republicans have felt the pressure for a while that they need something active to campaign on. And here's the president coming in again at the 11th hour and saying, let's do an own goal. I'm going to keep this in limbo. And you've written about how this is a low point in the Senate Republican relationship with the president of their own party. Just how strained do you really think it is? Because last week I had sources trying to tamp it down for me. And what is the impact as we head even closer to the November midterms?
Yesterday on the Hill, I think, felt like a watershed moment for a lot of us who have been covering this party, this president for years. And you can't really overstate just how abnormal it is to have the president basically in a shouting match with a Republican senator at the Capitol during a policy lunch. Every single senator we spoke to afterward said that this had been, a heated conversation. I think Senator Kennedy at one point told me that Trump was as mad as, quote, a murder hornet. And so that's
going to get one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, you knew you were going to get one of those. And so it's a pretty vivid picture and really just striking here. And of course, there were a few who came out and were a little more optimistic. Senator Tom Tillis, Republican from North Carolina, said something along the lines of, this is a reminder that we need to get in better lockstep. We need to coordinate better moving forward. But I think, most folks on the Hill privately, even if they weren't saying so publicly, saw this as a continuation of Trump prioritizing his legacy above their ability to retain these key congressional majorities in the fall.
Okay, and yet, and I've said this a bunch of times over the course of the last few months, talking against the president is one thing, venting public grievances is one thing, but then the way that they vote doesn't seem to match that. I mean, just look at the case of Bill Cassidy, right? A lot of tough talk about the Iran deal, standing up in the room with the president, getting into a shouting match, being called a lunatic. I mean, it sounded really bad. And then he gets a quick invitation to the sit room, gets briefed on the Iran MOU, comes back and says, all right, I'm going to change my war powers vote. Like, how do we make sense of that? Or is it just that senators feel like they can speak to something but not actually act against this president?
It's a great question, and it's extra surprising in the case of Cassidy because he obviously lost his primary in large part because of his rift with Trump. And so there's not a ton. You would think that he'd embrace an approach like Senator Tillis has embraced of kind of a little more unencumbered, a little freer to vote and speak his mind. He's certainly been speaking his mind, as we saw. But then, to your point, he voted with the president last night after this, again, confrontation over lunch where Trump said that it was unfair for him to vote against the Iran war, which, again, was a non-binding resolution. It's something that the president would have been able to veto if it had ever gotten to his desk. And it didn't even do that. So the fact that the president is so fixated is fascinating. But I think it speaks really to how compelling the president can be on a personal level, and then also the degree of control that other Republicans clearly believe he still has over the party, right? If you are someone who wants it to continue to serve in any elected capacity, or even just maybe lead some kind of public-facing life, this is someone that clearly the vast majority of them still think they need to have on their side, and that's what we saw reflected with this most recent vote last night.
Yeah, I think as we try to make sense of this, like, YOLO caucus, you only live once, I'm not coming back to Washington for whatever reason, I think that the mindset that I'm beginning to adopt is not that they just want to stick it to the president. That was never the case. It's that they are willing to use their leverage to get what they need to get on board eventually with the president. I think that's a pretty big distinction as we try to watch whatever happens over the course of the next few months of this Congress.